Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I believe we are live and welcome to World Hijab Day 2026. My name, of course, is Shireen Mahmood. I'm a UK ambassador for World Hijab Day and board director. I am joined by the amazing Petra Al Sufi. I can't wait to introduce you to her properly, but let me just do a little bit of housekeeping. So, World Hijab Day, of course, we are on our theme this year is unity in hijab. Our hashtag is unity in hijab. I want to welcome you all. We had an amazing first session with Ashley and some amazing speakers, Mars and Sister Nahela. Hope you tuned in. Make sure you're sharing this live. Make sure you're commenting. We want to hear from you. We want to hear about your hijab stories. We want to hear about your experiences. We want you to really take this platform as your own. World Hijab Day, of course, was set up specifically to create an awareness and understanding around what hijab means to us, what hijab is, what hijabi sisters are facing in terms of the discrimination and the anti-Muslim sentiment. So, of course, our topic today, I'm so super excited about, is combating Islamophobia. So, we're going to be talking about combating Islamophobia together, and we have the best speaker joining us. Let me tell you a little bit about Sister Petra now. Sister Petra, for those of you who recognize her or who might not recognize her, is actually a senior outreach manager for ISPU. Now, this is the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. Petra's work at ISPU includes strengthening valued partnerships and creating new ones, ensuring ISPU's research reaches the public and critical stakeholders, such as policymakers, community interfaith leaders, media professionals, and educators. So when we're talking about Islamophobia, we've got an expert on our team, right? So massive welcome to you. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Petra. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me today, and thank you for this generous introduction.
I'm looking forward to it because, look, we need more women on the front line of these discussions. For too long, and so many outdated narratives, still exist, and the big old one of hijabis are oppressed, whereas in reality we see some amazing women at the front line, also in senior leadership positions like yourself. So we're going to jump straight into the topic because we only have a short time. I always say this to Sister Nazma, big shout out to our founder, Sister Nazma, that I wish I could take these conversations and make them longer and longer. So let's really get into it straight away. ISPU is, where you're working and all the work that you do. What does the data tell us about the impact of Islamophobia on our Muslim communities, and why is it's so important for us to have evidence-based advocacy in combating it, basically?
Thank you for that question. And this really gets into the hearts of why ISPU exists in the first place. As you mentioned, there's a lot of outdated misconceptions and assumptions about Muslims in general, but especially about Muslim women. Everybody speaking on behalf of Muslim women. And what ISPU does is, through the research, the rigorous research, is allow Muslims to speak for themselves, to speak through data and research. And one of the topics that we looked into is the experience of Muslim women, and obviously the experience or the impact of Islamophobia on Muslim American communities. And so just to clarify, we research Americans within the United States, but I think all of us, when we hear the data, we could see some of the patterns that we see in other parts of the world. One of the things that we looked at is we developed something with Georgetown that's called the Islamophobia Index, and we asked people their agreement with some stereotype or stereotypical comments or assumptions about American Muslims. And the reason for these assumptions or these specific comments is because they're tied to, those who support them actually support discriminatory policies against American Muslims in general. And you will see that one of these stereotypes is that American Muslims are more misogynistic than other groups of people. So this whole concept of misogyny is assumed that American Muslims are more misogynistic than other people. And you will see from the index that we measure a lot of other points, but this specific piece keeps coming, the most silent or the most popular one of all the other ones. That's what a lot of people assume about American Muslims. And I'm not going to go into details about how everybody's there to rescue Muslim women. We go to wars in the name of Muslim women and all of that. But we see the direct connection to the experience of Muslims in general, but Muslim women especially. So Islamophobia is on the rise. It's increasing every year. 60% of American Muslims say they experienced religious-based discrimination in the past year. And we also know that, Muslim women, especially visibly Muslim women, bear the burden of that. We see in the experience of people like Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Sister, Linda Sarsour, and many of the other Muslim women who are visibly out there in the public, and they're visibly muhajjabat, that contradict the assumption about Muslim women being oppressed. And so people are confused on what to do with that. And so, the assumption that Muslim women are forced or are, wearing the hijab because someone else is telling them. I'm going to kind of tie this very quickly to how those assumptions translate into actually discriminatory policies. So a third of American Muslims are actually experiencing institutional Islamophobia in places like their workplace, their while receiving healthcare, while interacting with law enforcement, while traveling, and while banking. All of these impact their everyday lived experiences. That's in addition to people, random people discriminating against them in the public, or coworkers discriminating against them.
That's crazy.
And to one piece to add to that is, where are these assumptions coming from? This is something that is really important for us to pay attention to, is the role of media in shaping all of this narrative. I know we're going to get into this a little bit later in the conversation, but a lot of people have never met a Muslim in their life, and where they get their information is from the news or from entertainment media. And unfortunately, both of those have painted Islam and Muslims worse than cancer in cocaine. And even in places where Muslim women are not, are actually doing really well, the media has still present them in a very negative, light. So, and we published a recent study that looks at the impact of popular media representation. And there's a direct connection between how Muslims are portrayed in the entertainment media and people supporting, either anti-Muslim policies or supporting anti-democratic policies.
Absolutely. And it's such a massive, point that you've made there with the media and the entertainment industry. I actually spoke to Brother Rashad Strick, who was actually part of the Ertugrul series that was very, very famous. And he said that even in Turkey, what we have is hijabi women are always the disheveled looking type, uneducated village type people, never the modern, educated, strong, independent woman. So these are really, really important points. And let me welcome to the stage, we also have our sister joining us, who is a book author. So her input is going to be also very valuable to us. Let me introduce you to Sister A.M. Dasu. And she is a former World Book Day author and internationally acclaimed author of 14 children books, which have collectively been listed for over 55 awards, including the Carnegie Medal, Waterstone's Children's Book Prize, and Jade Addams Peace Book Award as well. So welcome to the stage. Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're really well.
Assalamu alaikum. It's great to be here. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, we're good. We kickstarted the conversation a little bit without you. We've had some evidence and stats shared, and we're just touching on how important media and entertainment can be in this narrative that is pushed, unfortunately. So I'm going to ask you the next question, actually, because your books often center this type of, a story of displacement, prejudice, and resilience. And how can or how do you use storytelling, especially for young people? And, how does this play a part in combating Islamophobia?
Well, I truly believe that writers of children's fiction have the power to change hearts and minds, because when you read a book, there's no other form like it. You can watch a movie, you could watch a TV show from the outside, but when you read a book, you see the characters' world from their point of view and you become them. You can see and smell and hear everything that they are experiencing. And you experience things that you might not really understand from afar. So, how does it feel to leave home? How does it feel to be locked up in a room and be told you're being fed and should be grateful? How does it feel to be laughed at or be denied opportunities because of the color of your skin or your belief or the hijab on your head, or live in fear and in the shadows and lose all dignity and hope? And I always try in my stories to find a connection. So all children know how it feels to start a new school. Majority of children will know how it feels to be bullied or, be upset by a comment, a flippant comment even. And I try in my stories to take those common experiences and then present them from the point of view of Muslims. And I think it's so important for young people to feel seen in books and media, because school is a microcosm of society. It can be your first experience of stereotyping, of bias, of hate. And as we know, childhood is a time in your life that can really shape the choices that you make. And I know that young people want to understand the world that they're in and their own place in it. And I think that books can really help them understand and tackle difficult themes that they'll be aware of through the news, their peers, and perhaps their own experiences. And what I also want is for children that are experiencing discrimination and stereotyping themselves, or experiencing microaggressions, or live with violent or controlling family members, or who get called names, etc. I want them to also see that there are other people that experience these things, because a book can literally be life-changing. If they see themselves in it, or they realize that they've got something in common with those that seem different after all, I think that's when change happens. And so what I try to do is reflect the experiences of those who have faced or facing discrimination, so that readers can understand the experience and impact of prejudice and bullying. And I'll tell you a bit more about that through my other books a little later. But I think that, to write stories that have relatable characters is the key, so that people who don't get the opportunity to meet us can make that connection. That is literally why I write. I want to represent us, and I want them to see, oh, they're also just want to be safe. They also just want to, be with their family or friends. They're not really evil, etc. So yeah, that's the aim of the books. And I think that when you can see yourself in a story, it gives you a sense of belonging, a sense of place, and you feel valued. And I think for people who like us, that can be life-changing, empower you to stand up for yourselves. Or for those that are not Muslim who are reading my books, if they connect to that character and they see themselves through that character, they might just be a bit more interested in connecting with a real Muslim in the real world.
For sure. Absolutely. It becomes an asset, and like you mentioned, representation is key across all platforms. TV, media, entertainment industry, we've got a lot of work to do around that. And it's so, my girls are now sort of teenagers, but back when they were growing up, there was so little out there in terms of representation, but the problems were still there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my young Ashlina at the time, she came home from school talking about, this Muslim wall that the Trump, administration was pushing for. And are we going to be thrown out of the country? And these are the conversations, like you said, are being had by our very young children who don't know how to navigate it unless we're sharing the realities of what we're going through. So it's so important that we have, authors, we have more representation on mainstream, within all aspects and parts of our society. And I'm not sure whether you caught some of Sister Petra's conversation around, the evidence that we're collecting and how important it is to be reporting on it. So it's interesting because I've got two amazing speakers with me from two different backgrounds, but the conversation here is about uniting our voices against all oppression and all injustice. And the hashtag this year is unity in hijab. So it's a great opportunity for us to really explore how we can combat Islamophobia together. And if I bring in Sister Petra, just about the fact that you're part of a research institution and you have the stats and you're seeing and you're setting up these initiatives, you're really well placed to understand how we can combat it, how we're going to collaborate, perhaps how can we effectively address Islamophobia at the systemic level. What would you like to share with that regard?
First, I'll actually start by saying, what the sister shared about, the importance of stories and representation is actually, this is backed up by research. So we are seeing that, as I said, most people don't know about Islam and Muslims. And one of the ways to actually counter Islamophobia is by demystifying Islam itself and talking about Islam. And then because misogyny is the most widespread stereotype, centering women's stories and their experiences is one of the ways to counter that. So that's exactly the recipe. Now, when we talk about institutional setting in institutional places, it's important to recognize that there is a responsibility there. It's the importance of policy places in institutional settings countering Islamophobia is not just to be nice. It's not just the nice thing to do, it's the responsible thing to do. And the best way to do that is through, first of all, education and ensuring that people have the proper understanding of what hijab is and why most Muslim women wear it, which is their conviction that this is part of their faith and their identity. And the fact that, once you start discriminating against one group of people, you actually open the door to discriminating against a lot of other groups of people. So in our research, we talk about Islamophobia being bad, not just for Muslims, but actually for everybody and for democracy. And so the responsible thing to do is to counter that at the institutional level. And that's where Muslims need to do a lot of the work to push against, their faith being targeted and anyone's faith being targeted. And like I said, once a lot of, for example, taking the American context as an example, a lot of what we're seeing today in our society, everything that people are protesting against, this didn't start yesterday. This is not and these are not new policies that just emerged. These are the byproducts of what society allowed to be done against Muslims in 2001, in 2002, and post 9/11 out of the Patriot Act. And so kind of weaving that in, once you allow discrimination against one group of people, you open the door against discriminating against others. And that's where, pushing in the policy space for anti-discrimination against Muslims, anti-discrimination against Black, anti-discrimination against women, and allowing especially Muslim women to make choices for themselves on where they fit in with their journey, with their faith, and recognizing that once a piece of our faith is being used and weaponized against us in a lot of places, then that impacts healthcare, that impacts jobs, that impact our families just thriving.
Absolutely. And I think, I wonder whether if we bring Sister into this, Dasu, would you sort of relate to that? Would you back that? Is that what you found in the community with your writing? Have you found something very similar to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that we tend to do is stay within our communities for safety. And I think what's really, really important is to go out there. And as Sister Petra was saying, that you need to go out there and show who we really are, what we can do, and that we are valuable members of society as well, and not shy away. And there's so many ways to do that. So it's scary. But one of the reasons that I actually, when I wrote my book, Fight Back, it's sort of relates to my own story that after 9/11, I wasn't wearing a hijab until 9/11. And then 2 weeks after 9/11, when most people were thinking of taking it off, I decided to put it on because I thought, well, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go into the workplace, and they like me. They like me as a human being, and I'm going to show them that I'm still that person. And look, I'm wearing a hijab, I'm Muslim, and I'm going to represent my religion. And that's what my story is based on. It's for kids, but basically it's literally what I did because I thought I have to visibly be seen as a Muslim, and I have to show them what we strive to be, you know, like what Muslims. So yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely, I agree with her. And one of the key reasons that I wrote Fight Back was because my son joined high school, and in his first few weeks they were studying Islam, and he came home and he said, the boy next to me asked me if my God was a terrorist. And I had no intention to write about my experience, but my poor baby boy, who was 11 years old, very innocent. Obviously, as a parent, I hadn't discussed 9/11 with him. I didn't discuss Islamophobia with him. We don't, as parents. We want to protect our children. And I thought, well, I've got to do something about this. So I had to then explain to him why this boy, very flippantly, without any meanness, asked this question, because he had heard these conversations at home and why his parents thought this, etc. And then, yeah, I basically directly confronted that in the book, basically.
It's so good that you were able to flip the script at that time, and it is a very emotional time, I think, after 9/11, with the spike around the world, because even here in the UK and, you know, in Europe generally, you know, hijabs were being pulled off, Muslim women were being attacked, our Sikh brothers were shot. You know, there was a lot of hate at that point. And very similarly, actually, I wasn't wearing the hijab. I was only a teenager at school myself. The very next day, 10/11, is when I went in with my hijab, and I did the very same thing that you did, because I wanted to stand up for my, you know, fellow sisters and for our deen, that actually we have a very we have a beautiful religion, and we must, you know, we're all ambassadors here. We are, you know, ambassadors today for World Hijab Day, sharing our stories and combating, you know, Islamophobia together, trying to put our stories, our viewpoints out there to shake up the narratives that have been, you know, for too long out there. And that's what the real essence of our faith is, and what it teaches us, to stand up against, you know, injustice. And, you know, we stand unapologetically with our faith and the right to wear hijab and represent, inshallah. And I've always mentioned this, and reality is we're almost the last believing women to walk the earth without moving our lips, without even speaking. We say La ilaha illallahu Muhammadur Rasulullah, and this is what this hijab means, and this is how important it is to us, and, you know, the reason that we're fighting for it. And I love the title of the book being Fight Back, because there's a bit of fight back in all of us. You know, when it's the right thing to do, that is what we're going to do, and we have to make it easier for the next generations. It's our duty to make the pathways easier and combat Islamophobia, because right now, I think, you know, people are now thinking about safety, and the impact of Islamophobia becomes very violent. Actually, in the UK, we've had racially aggravated rapes. The riots, the anti-Muslim, you know, speeches that were allowed, very extreme speakers coming from, you know, abroad and being allowed to speak here, burning of Qurans, etc., mosques being attacked. So this is what's happening globally, and it's not just, you know, the UK or America. Our sisters are going through bans, hijab bans. You know, a lot of French sisters move over to the UK simply because they aren't able to wear their hijab or niqab. So there's a lot of work to do, and I'm so glad your voices and your, you know, your work is so important to these, you know, to the future. So let's take it to the next question. We've got a couple more questions that I'd love to ask you. So we've discussed a little bit about how global your audience can be through storytelling and through your books, and we want to know, how do we bring the conversation for people to understand that actually we are just human. We do want the best for our children. We want the best for the futures. And I think I'll bring you both in, because we're all family women here. We want to protect our sisters. We're Muslim women who are visible and will go out in public, you know, and do the things that we do. So how do we bring it back to really touching the hearts of our brothers and sisters, and perhaps even build allyships with our interfaith communities? So whoever wants to go first.
Shall I, Petra, sister?
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they say that empathy is the glue that holds society together. It's literally what makes you want to visit someone who's sick, or share the sugar with your neighbor, or stop and help someone in distress. But we are now, I mean, I truly believe that our children have got it much harder than we did, because we're increasingly seeing people with big platforms denigrating empathy as if having it makes you weaker or smaller. But, you know, through studies, you know, we know that empathy can be truly life-changing. And I think that's what I try to encourage in all of my books, because the connection between empathy and fiction has actually been studied in psychology, and they've shown that reading itself is what encourages a change in individuals. It's not that people who are naturally more empathetic gravitate towards fiction, or that fiction readers have specific personality traits that, you know, are primed for greater empathy. It's literally reading that does it. So when we see conflict or racism play out on our TV screens and social media, we need young people to read books that humanize minorities and Muslims and show how it feels to feel othered, abused, displaced. And that's pretty much what I've done in Boy Everywhere, Fight Back, Kicked Out, etc., to show another side to the story that we're told in the news. And in all of them, like I said, I take situations which every child will connect to. So, for example, when I wrote Boy Everywhere, I chose to write about a middle-class Syrian refugee simply because I wanted kids in the West, in the UK and US, to connect with him, to see themselves in him when he's on his iPad, when he wants to get on the football team, when he goes to the mall with his friends. And it's been amazing to see the response from children who are not Muslim, who absolutely see themselves in those characters. I've had kids get up and tell me that they feel empowered by Alia's story of Fight Back. She is Muslim. She wears a hijab. She has nothing in common with these kids, yet they see themselves through her because of the experiences of bullying, because of the experiences of wanting to just live your life, wanting to just be with your friends innocently and not being allowed to because of your identity, because of the way that you look. So yeah, I think empathy is the key to show people that we all have the same hopes and fears. We've all got the same needs and wants. We're literally human beings.
Exactly. Sister Petra.
Yes, so empathy is the key, but in the absence of that, and especially in interfaith spaces or in societies where, you know, it's all about power, it's also responsibility. What you allow to happen to one group of people today will happen to you tomorrow. And so if you don't want that to be, you know, ideally in a world, we should be doing things because it's the right thing to do. But in the absence of that, or if people are not thinking of that, it's because Islamophobia is literally bad for democracy. It's literally bad for all people, not just for Muslims. Islamophobia impacts people who are perceived to be Muslims. You know, the Sikh community is one of the communities that's heavily impacted by it because people assume they're Muslims, so they're targeted. It's also connected to all other forms of isms. It's connected to like I said, anti-immigrant, anti-women, anti-LGBT, anti-Black, and anti-Semitism. So no matter which group of people you belong to, Islamophobia is connected to that. So what you allow to happen to one group of people will happen to others. Islamophobia comes from the same roots of the other isms and the other hateful, attitudes. And so it is in everybody's interest to fight them all at the same time and see the interconnectedness between all of them. And then the last piece is because it's really bad for policy, for democracy. Those who support Islamophobia are more likely to support anti-democratic values. They are more likely to support authoritarian attitudes. They're more likely to support limiting freedom of the press. They're more likely to support the military targeting civilians. So all of the things that should not exist in our society, there's a connection to Islamophobia. So this is my pitch for everybody should be fighting it because it's the right thing to do. But if you don't think it's the right thing to do, it's because it's really bad for you.
For sure. And I mean, like, just taking it from there, Islamophobia being bad for everyone. And when we're talking about humanity, the things that we've witnessed, globally, I work in the humanitarian field. So, and actually, you don't even have to work in the humanitarian field to have seen what's going on in Gaza, in Sudan. It's been all over our social media. This has directly had an impact actually on the rise of Islamophobia. And we have to remind ourselves that it might be thousands of miles away, but closer and closer, it gets closer to our step. Like I said, those racially aggravated rapes against our Sikh sisters were directly after those hate marches that happened by Tommy Robinson. So we can't forget that. And it is right. And here at World Hijab Day, we are pro-choice, we are pro-hijab, we are pro-faith. We are pro-humanity. And of course, when it comes to our brothers wearing bugs or, the Jewish brothers wearing kippahs, whether it's the chunni, whether it's any type of headdress, whether it's the nuns that walk the streets of Jerusalem to the Church of Holy Sepulchre, we have to stand up and we have to stand in solidarity, against these injustices, because it will inevitably, it will come to our doorstep. We are having to advise and teach our children, like Sister mentioned, that that conversation was difficult to have, that Islamophobia exists, and we are perhaps the other. Still, it doesn't matter how many generations of our families are here or wherever we're living in the West, we're still othered. So I think we've got the work to do. There's so many people taking this initiative and working through, and World Hijab Day is one of those global movements. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in, who is commenting, who is sharing the live, who is sharing this as an opportunity for us to learn from each other. I wanted to mention here, when we're talking about, working across our relative fields, is there anything else that we should be doing? How do we positively engage with, media, policies, community spaces, the organizations, the authorities in place, the government, the policies? And I think this, you guys are doing fabulous work around this. So I'll let you take over.
Petra, do you want to go first?
I could go quickly. So two things related to that. One is realizing that Islamophobia is not just an accident. It's not just, average people being hateful. There is that part, but Islamophobia is an industry. It's a well-funded, industry with so-called experts and foundations and lots of money behind it. So the sooner we understand that, the sooner our strategy will shift to countering it. So that's one. The second piece is there is no one solution. We need all parts of the puzzle to fit together. We need the media, we need the books, we need the stories, but we also need the policy, and we need the push to change policies. And we need to center the stories of Muslims in Muslim expertise, whether it's in government, in finance, and business, in environment, in philanthropy. We need to get to a point in our society where people understand, if I want to know about Muslims or get their opinion, I need to go to them, not to someone who's claiming to speak on their behalf. And this is not going to happen by us, sitting in our homes and doing nothing. This is going to happen by everyone with a platform, whether you're doing environmental work or you're doing policy work. In every space you're in, recognizing Islamophobia exists there. It impacts you, impacts the people around you, and you need to be vocal, and you need to show the resources that exist to countering that. And I want to say, alhamdulillah, we are in a society today where We have a plethora of organizations doing that. We have a lot of experts doing that. We have recommendations. We have policies that are already in place, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel like we did 20 years ago. We're not in that space anymore. Start by centering the facts and the research. Start by centering those who are in the policy space and they know how to push for policies. Become an expert in your own field, but also expand in in your knowledge and capacity. And always understand that this is a well-funded, oiled machine that's there, not just to get the Muslim community that's very connected to power. So it's not going to change just by, iftar dinners. Those are amazing and they're great to win the average, neighbor. But you need policy, and you need to be authentically yourself as Muslim. This is the other piece. Muslims will be targeted. We were targeted before 9/11. We are going to be targeted now. We're going to be targeted down the road. We have options. One, you could pretend you want to hide, and if you are, if you could pass and you're able to do that, great. Good luck to you. Most of us can't, and so the only other option is to be very proud of who you are, authentic, and be authentic. And people see that. People see it and they recognize it. And I'm going to end it here with saying that despite everything that Muslims have faced, the data still shows American Muslims are very proud of their faith. They're proud to identify with their faith community, and they go to their faith for a source of comfort. So this is our winning recipe. It's not abandoning who we are. It's actually holding on to it, because it's not just the source of strength. The essence of our faith is the call for justice. And this is what brings me back to how do we counter all of this beside policy and money, is we go back to kind of the origin of the story. How did Islam itself spread? It's not by us just talking, it's us living that faith. And so when Muslim doctors are taking care of patients in communities that nobody will go to, Islam is going to be visible in that space, right? When Muslim women who are targeted and attacked because they're visibly Muslim are still carrying themselves very proudly, are still taking care of their families, are still doing whatever they're good at, they're going to see that. And there is no stronger way to countering Islamophobia than to be authentically ourselves.
Absolutely. What a powerful, powerful message Sister has put out there. And that's what we're talking about. How do we collectively, strategically, combat and counteract all the narratives out there? And it has to be, we go within to ourselves and our deen, and we represent it even more louder and prouder, to be honest. We are valued members of society, 100%. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't gifted us this deen. We're so blessed for us to be average or for us to be mediocre. We have the greats in Islam. And of course, World Hijab Day is a very sister-focused, almost global movement, simply because it's hijab that we're talking about. But it's also not just a sister-focused, movement, because we expect and we demand and we appreciate our brothers' voices on these as well. When we're talking about allyship, we want the brothers to also speak about this. And then stepping back a little bit even further, we're talking about not just the brothers within the Muslim community, we're talking about allyship between our Sikh brothers and sisters and our Jewish brothers and sisters, and from all faiths and all backgrounds and none. So that's really how we get to, pro-humanity and human rights and, freedom and justice for all. And I think that's super important. So thank you so much for sharing such a powerful message. It's really motivated me as well. And maybe we can bring it to yourself as well. From your experience, what message would you want to put out there to our brothers and sisters across, humanity? How can they help support? Because this conversation isn't just by Muslims for Muslims; it's also for, the whole of our society. How are we bringing them in? What would your message be?
So everything that Petra said, I wholeheartedly agree with. The thing is, we know through the hadith that things are not going to get better. They're going to get a hell of a lot worse before they get better. And I think we're entering that really, really bad phase, and I'm quite terrified of what's to come. But I think it's so important to ignore the noise. It's really, really easy to get scared, become insular, only see the people that you can relate to or you feel safe with. We have to push boundaries. If you think about when in the Prophet's time, he sent people to unknown countries with unknown leaders, and he sent them across the Middle East to connect with those people and to spread his message and to be safe. And we've basically got to do the same. We've got to be our best selves, first and foremost. And instead of thinking about what can other people do for us, I really, truly believe the key is what can you do for other people? That is the only way to build connection. What can you do for other people? Not what can you do for me as a Muslim. Go out there, get educated, build your experience, and go out there and help people. Write books, I don't know, as Petra said, doctors, lawyers, whatever, but go out there and connect with people on a real value. When you can help people, they'll see the humanness in you. They can then talk about an experience with a Muslim when they're hearing all the noise. So I've seen a shift actually. So I came off X because obviously Elon Musk is just horrific. And when he started like openly targeting Islam, I thought there's no way I'm being on this platform. So I came off. And because I'm off, I then became cut off from what was going on in the world. So my algorithm mostly on Instagram is about Palestine and a few book things. And then Facebook, I'll see world news a little bit more. And it's really, really interesting because I see articles and usually I'd see really hateful comments. And I do still see them, but I see a lot more positive comments. I do. So stuff that's happening in Australia that I've not seen on mainstream news. But I've got people there, you've got people there saying, look how the president spoke up, straight away for the Bondi massacre, but not this one. No one's talking about how Muslims helped here, blah, blah, blah. So I'm seeing more and more that there are lots of people that do see the propaganda, do see what's happening. They can see that there's a campaign and they are talking about their experiences. Like they'll say, oh, well, my neighbor feeds me through Ramadan. I love their food. The corner shop guy has been nothing but nice to me. And I think that's all you can do. Be yourself, as Petra said, be authentic and represent. Always be mindful of how you're representing yourself. Like I really get mad when I see Muslim young people or Muslim people losing it and getting angry or burning things or effigies. And that then becomes the global vision of Islam. When the Salman Rushdie book came out, when I was like a child in the 80s, everyone thought Muslims were crazy and wild simply because of those people burning the book and shouting and screaming about the book, which made the book a bestseller. And no one would have bought it otherwise. But what I'm saying is that had you not behaved like that, no one would have bought the book. No one would have thought we were crazy. No one would have been able to fuel that fire. So really, you've got to be very, very mindful of how you come across. And you've really got to think about what you do. And then you will have allyship. I've got so many non-Muslim friends. I don't write for the Muslim audience. My vision was to write for mainstream. My books are on the curriculum in the UK. They are used by teachers in the US, in Australia, etc. And they are mostly supported, sadly, I would say, by non-Muslims because people want to be allies. People will read a story, they'll connect to it. And that was always my vision, that if I want to write stories where everyone will feel seen in them and everyone will be able to speak up then, like Petra said, when you speak up for, other communities, you're almost preventing what comes back to you. So, absolutely. Yeah, ultimately, I think the onus lies on what we do, how we do it. And we've really got to stop being insular and not making it about us. We've got to go outward and build communities, meet people. When someone's nasty to you, like I have microaggressions in my local bakery, Greg's, right? And she's really, really racist when she sees me. She's so nice, this older woman, very nice to every single white person in the queue. I come along, her face shifts. She's nasty to me. She'll serve me. I can't complain. It's a microaggression, but it's very obvious she dislikes me. But I will always smile. I am never rude. And I guess that's all we can do. Go forward, keep building bridges, ignore it, just keep going. It's hard, but I think that's our test.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I think it's a very passionate topic that we're going to be passionate about because we are mothers. And it adds that extra caveat of almost, the love and care that goes into building our families and wanting that safe environment and wanting just, smiles back at, wherever you're going for a lunch break and things like that. And I really do hope that, we are moving forward. And you're correct. There has been a shift. And, Gaza, Sudan, all of these places have really brought humanity out, the goods and the bads. And I think it's really put a magnifying glass on all of that stuff. So I think, yeah, absolutely. Let's take the positives that even through adversity, we can really fight back, right? And we have to be fearless. And I think this is what we've got to be, fearless in our faith and representing our faith. We are Muslim women. We are strong. We are independent. We do think, we do choose, we do thrive in everything that we do, anything that we put our minds to. So hijab is in no way, shape or form a barrier to us as individuals. It only becomes a barrier when there's discrimination and those Islamophobic systems and structures that are, causing us issues. But we go, risk is written. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us not to worry, and we are not a dejected people. And we learn a lot from our brothers and sisters in Palestine as well. So I think we've talked about quite a lot. So alhamdulillah, I do hope that the audience have enjoyed it. I want to say a special heartfelt thank you to you both for being with us and joining us in your, I'm sure, very hectic, busy timetables. Ramadan is on its way as well. So Ramadan Mubarak to you both and to your families. It's on its way. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it the best one yet for us. But these conversations will be ongoing. These conversations will continue to happen until we make it a safer environment for all, inshallah. And yes, in solidarity we stand together. So thank you so much, my dear sisters, and we will see you back soon.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.